you got to be a guy who's hands-on with your teammates. You just can't say, I'll do my job, you do yours. No. You are the leader. You are the designated bring guys together guy on that team, and Hurts is great at it, and Carson is basically the diametric opposite. Yeah, you got a couple of Mac and Mac. You got a couple of Eagle insiders. You got a couple of Graybeards. And we've also got a couple of wins for the hometown football team. The 2-0 Philadelphia Eagles will be the topic of conversation, shockingly so, here on Birds 365. John McMullen and Jody McDonald here to hang with you for the next couple hours. We like doing things in twos here on Birds 365. Johnny Mac, Nick Sirianni yesterday stuck to the conversation of focus. He believes that his team is focused. He's going to make sure that they stay focused. They're not going to let the fact that John McMullen and Jody McDonald are singing their praises on Birds 365.
Yeah, everybody is. The rat poison, Jody, that the nicely packaged rat poison is the story this week. So Nick Sirianni doesn't want everybody listening. There was a spike around the Delaware Valley at the flower shops. Everybody was calling in to get the Eagles their flowers. So this is prime, as they say, letdown territory in the NFL. Short week on the road, division rival. They're the better football team. There's no question about that. But this is prime letdown territory.
And even if you acknowledge that, and you checked off a couple of the boxes that do usually come before a letdown, are the Washington Commanders, and I got to get used to calling them the Commanders. How long do you think, by the way, they'll be the Commanders? Is there another name change in the offing for the football team we're going to be playing this week?
I don't think so. You can only go to that double dip merchandising so many times. They did a wonderful job at that. The rare flower I'll give to Daniel Snyder. He did a wonderful job after finally begrudgingly admitting he had to change the name. You go that long period with the Washington football team so you can sell all those hats and jerseys, and then you can change it. But you can't do it again. You can't. Maybe if he sells the team, which everyone would be thrilled, maybe the new owner could do it.
Yeah, I think they probably, his brethren would let him get away with that if the new owner wanted to change the name. I'm going to call him all sorts of different combination things on a week-to-week basis, but specifically this week on Birds 365 because they are the opponent, but are they? And I ate a little crow week number one when I said I thought the Eagles would just manhandle the Lions because they were the Lions. And the Lions put up a heck of a fight against the Eagles and then turn around and beat this team that the Eagles are playing this week, the Commanders. But if A equals B and B equals C, doesn't A equal C? If the Lions couldn't beat the Eagles and the Commanders couldn't beat the Lions, how the heck are the Commanders going to beat the Eagles? Is letdown week, look ahead week, sandwich game, call it what you want, is that enough for this game to be competitive?
Yeah, competitive. Yeah, I think it will be competitive. It's early. We'll give our predictions tomorrow, but I'm leaning towards the Eagles. I think they'll get over. Other people are going to talk about Jalen Hurts and his performance on Monday night. I still think his performance in Detroit was better, believe it or not, because that was a game in they could have lost. That was a game the Eagles completely dominated on Monday night. There's a lot of pitch and catch. There's a lot of glorified 7-on-7. Played great, don't get me wrong, but I think he got the Eagles over the hump in Detroit. Like, I think they lose that game if it's not for Jalen Hurts. So he's up with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in the MVP race. You see the betting markets. He's third or fourth, depending on where you look. Right. He's ahead of Aaron Rodgers that's where we are. And the guy doesn't change, man. He doesn't change. And at the very end of his press conference yesterday, which can be boring because he doesn't say anything, but somebody mentioned something went up on his social media's Twitter, And he said, I don't run my social media. He's got somebody else running the social media, which is what he should be doing. He shouldn't be paying any attention to that toxic nonsense. And he doesn't. And I got to remind myself this guy's 24 years old because he acts more mature than most 34-year-old people. It's pretty phenomenal. That's the thing I'm most impressed with Jalen Hurts about. So I know from his perspective, he's not, and he says it all the time, and it turns into a cliche. He's not going to get too high. He's not going to get too low, but it's true. You can't tell the difference. He just had the best game. He did something nobody else has ever done in the history of the NFL. Now, those convoluted statistics, we brought that up. Kevin Kincaid actually brought that up. He gave the example of Robert Covington, 0.4. You can put
all
any
comes
mark.
Down to where you draw the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. But still, 300 yards, 80% passing, 2 rushing touchdowns. Nobody had ever done it before.
Right.
So there's something to that. I mean, he played very well. And they've been playing football for a long time. Nobody's ever done it before. So it is pretty impressive. Can't tell. So I know now, I don't know about the other 52 guys. They might love their flowers and they might love the adulation, and that might turn into a negative. But the on-field leader, you don't got to worry about. That's an impressive thing.
And Sirianni is completely bought into him being the on-field leader. And this is nothing new. He was their on-field leader last year. He's just taking it to another level this year. And when Sirianni sits down with you guys and puts out the message that they have to stay focused, they can't do their reading or grab their flowers or however you want to describe the adulation that the Eagles are getting both here in Philadelphia and nationally this week. It's nice when you got a guy like Jalen Hurts, who is the number one guy who's going to have to deal with it more than anyone else. The quarterback always does. He handles it well. And it seems to be that he's got the ear of every single one of his teammates. There isn't one guy in that locker room that isn't listening to Jalen Hurts these days. If there was coming into the season, they were few and far between. And with the way he's played the first couple of weeks, I think everybody knows that they're going to follow their leader, and their leader is their quarterback.
Yeah, and that's it's a big week. Obviously, it's Carson Wentz week, and all the comparisons are being hedged up, and I did it as well because you have to do it. But that's one of the things. Carson, I think in a lot of ways gets a bad rap because I've always called him. He's just an introvert, but he's playing a position where you almost have to be an extrovert. And people will say, well, Jalen doesn't, yeah, on camera, behind the camera, he's very engaging with everybody. He goes out of his way to engage with everybody. He's been taught that since, Nick Saban, maybe even his father as a high school coach, who knows? But he's been taught that, and he takes it very seriously. So anytime, whether it's James Bradbury, and I asked Jalen about this yesterday, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, even lesser players, Janarius Robinson is like 5 lockers down. He picked up off the Vikings practice squad last week. He goes out of his way. These are defensive players, all right? Now, for people that don't know, the offense and the defense, everything's very clicky in an NFL building. The offensive line, probably the biggest click of all in every NFL building. You spend all your time with your position group, basically. And a couple times you come together as an offensive group, as a defensive group. But the offense and defense don't get together very much, except on the field when they're working against each other. So, one of the issues that certain players had with Carson, and usually it was bottom of the roster guys, he's the face of the franchise. He's the guy making all the money. He's the guy in Philadelphia. People forget or want to forget. He was, in June of 2019, they gave him the largest contract in franchise history. It hasn't been that long.
Mm-hmm.
And, he just kept to himself. And some people took that the wrong way, especially because he was very close with certain players. Everybody knows Zach Ertz, but he was tremendously close with Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox and some of those veteran players. Fletcher, if people forget, would, fall on the sword for Carson all the time. I mean, Fletcher loves Carson. So, you have this core veteran group, but he didn't sort of bring everybody in, and that rubbed some people the wrong way. Jalen goes out of his way to do stuff like that.
And you yourself just said, John, and I think rightfully so, in that position, you can't be an introvert.
Yeah.
If that's your personality, you need to work on your personality.
Yeah.
It's kind of a prerequisite of the job, and maybe not as good as Jalen Hurts is, because you've been covering this league for a long time. Closer than I have. I'm more from afar. You're in the locker room, so you get to see these guys interact up close and personally. You got to be a guy who's hands-on with your teammates. You just can't say, I'll do my job, you do yours. No. You are the leader. You are the designated bring guys together guy on that team, and Hurts is great at it, and Carson is basically the diametric opposite. He wasn't good at it, and he didn't seem to care. That's what probably bothered me more than anything else when Carson was walking out. He didn't care. He didn't care what anybody else thought about him.
I don't know if he didn't care as much as he didn't think about it. He didn't, there's certain,
Now you tell me you don't think Carson knew the overall riding opinion of him was that.
I'm saying one in my example of engaging with teammates, and I use Janarius Robinson as the better example because he's a bottom of the roster guy. I don't even think that would cross Carson's mind to say, oh, I should welcome Janarius Robinson to the Eagles. I honestly don't, it probably didn't enter his mind when there were players like that who came in. Sometimes they come in the building or out of the building in 3-4 weeks. And I don't, Carson's never going to answer it. So that's just my perspective, speculation on it. As far as he was very understood. If you think about when Joe Santoliquido's story broke and all that came out, and Joe was vindicated, by the way, our own at JAKIBSports.com. But when that story first came out, if you remember, and I was at the Super Bowl, so I missed it, the Eagles quickly put together this very small press conference with about 6 writers. Dama was there. We can talk to, I think he was there. I'm not sure, but McLean was there, a couple of the Inquirer guys, because of that story. And he said, I got to work on some things. I got to be a better teammate. And he said yesterday, he wished he was a better teammate at times. And when he was doing his press conference in Ashburn, Virginia, he was saying he wished he was a better teammate at times here in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts, when they drafted Jalen Hurts, he was not happy. I still say, and I believe this to my core, I think the pandemic really, really hurt Carson Wentz as a player. Really hurt Carson Wentz as a player. He was left to his own devices. Everybody was off on their own. That was when you could really see, all right, Tom Brady's out there breaking laws, to get some work in, which is ludicrous now that we think about it in hindsight. They're keeping us out of the open air and they want to keep us in the COVID-infested dark recesses of every room. But it was stupid. But the point is that Tom was out there doing it at age, whatever he was at that point, 42, 43, still trying to get better, still trying to work on his craft.
With teammates he didn't know.
Yeah, with teammates he didn't know. Yeah, I think it really, really hurt him. I really do. Now, the injuries
hurt everybody, and I don't give Carson a pass for that. If you're saying
I don't give him a pass.
The kind of person he was, and this helped to accentuate it, okay, fine. Overcome it. You're a quarterback in the National Football League. You signed the biggest contract in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. Live up to it.
You misunderstand me. I'm not giving him a pass. In fact, I think it was his downfall because he leapt to his own devices. he needs somebody pushing him. He needs somebody pushing him at all times. It's funny because before the 2017 season, that's when Carson took off and had the MVP-like season before he got hurt. He was working out with Tom House and Adam Dadu. He's out in Southern California working on his mechanics, which were really, really bad. And he never did it again. And what lo and behold, Jalen Hurts is working with who this offseason? And lo and behold, 83.9% completion percentage in week 2. Here's the difference. I guarantee you next offseason, no matter what happens, Jalen Hurts will be back in Southern California.
All right, so let me ask you one quick Carson Wentz question. And yes, our buddy Paul Dunwich is going to join us coming up here in just a couple of minutes. The Washington football team commander, whatever you want to call him, offensive coordinator, Norv Turner's son. Scott. Is he the right guy to be pushing Carson Wentz? You still believe today, even though he's now traveled to 3 different teams, but Carson's personality is his personality, and we're not watching him and judging him like we did every single day when he was here in town, doing a little bit more so from afar. Is this the right combo of people to be in his ear and pushing him?
It's tough. I don't even know who their quarterbacks coach is. I think I'll look it up in the break, but I think that's the more important role. I think here John DiFilippo was the most important aspect of Carson, because John is a hard ass, as they say, and he was on him when it came to mechanics on a daily basis. And Carson didn't necessarily like it, but he needed it. And when John left, I think that was a big part of it as well. He just needs that type of coach. And I don't know if he has it in Washington or not. I think it's more important the position coach. Scott Turner's not, I know he can deadlift a lot. So I mean, he can probably give Jalen Hurts a run for his money. He's a freakish weightlifter, but I was never a fan of his dad. I think his dad is the most overrated offensive coordinator in the history of the world. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he should be still paying royalty checks to Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith, because they got him 50 jobs, and he never did anything after leaving Dallas. Kept getting job after job after job. Just amazing how that happens.
Yeah. You and I are going to disagree on that. I think.
I know I've joked for years. It's an indictable offense to criticize Norv Turner in the NFL. Look at his record.
No. I'm gonna criticize him, but not the way that you just criticized him. I think he was a damn good offensive coordinator. I think he was a god-awful head coach. And there are guys that just can't make that transition. That you can be a great coordinator. You can be a great guy putting together games. And that doesn't necessarily equate to being a good head coach in the National Football League. You're right. Norv got several chances at being a head coach when he didn't deserve a second after the first fiasco that he had. But that does not mean that he wasn't a good offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously, Barry Switzer could get that Cowboys team to win a Super Bowl. So that tells you a lot about the talent. Then he got the head coaching job. I hear what you're saying. He was the offensive coordinator in San Diego for a year, for Miami for 2 years, for Oakland. Then he was the head coach in Oakland. He got 1 year in San Francisco as a coordinator. Then he was a head coach again. He got 1 year in Cleveland as a coordinator. He got a couple years in Minnesota before Zimmer blew him out. Then he got a couple years in Carolina as a coordinator. 1, 2. He was never successful after Dallas, ever. And he got 3 stinking head coaching jobs. I don't understand
the head coaching job, I'm not going to
it.
argue with you. But some of those teams you just rattled off were pretty good offenses that he was the coordinator of that had good years offensively.
I think if you look at it, if you break, there's so much. First of all, because he kept leaving because he either wasn't successful or they were handing him another head coaching job for some bizarre reason.
Which was a mistake. Yes, I agree with you there.
Yeah, no, he wasn't good. That's the narrative. And believe me, I'm in the minority here, Jody, because I've told this to a lot of people around the NFL. They look at me cross-eyed. I mean, the success isn't there. You can make excuses, and there's a lot of, and I call them explanations. I shouldn't use that term. There's a lot. You need talent. Nick Sirianni says, "Show me a good coach, I'll show you good football players." Most overrated offensive coordinator I've ever been around. I'll say
I don't agree with that. The most overmatched head coach who continually got jobs after it was proven that he wasn't good at it. Yeah, that I'll sign on with you. Overrated offensive coordinator. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think the numbers show that.
And by the way, that's not Scott's fault either. I'm not putting Scott.
Right. I asked him about his son. It has nothing to do with the job that he's doing for Washington, but I don't know that he's the guy. If he's threatening Carson Wentz, they'll bench press him if he doesn't lead this team. That might actually be something.
And he might beat me up for criticizing his dad.
All right. We are the Mac and Mac guys, Jody McDonald and John McMullen. Quickie timeout. Then we come back with our bud from the 33rd team, and he writes for us on Fridays here on JAKIBSports.com. Paul Dumwich up on Birds 365 next.